Hi, everybody.
Mm.
Welcome to our Sunday afternoon show. I'm Betsy Freeman. Today we're talking about the flow of divine time, and I have three fabulous guests with me, April, Jennylyn, and David. I'll go ahead and send over to April to introduce herself and tell us a little bit about her connection to this topic.
Thanks for having me, Betsy. My name is April Fiet. I am streaming with you from Western Nebraska. I'm a mom of two, wife. I have backyard chickens, a couple of dogs, and I am getting ready to publish my first book. So I'm just really excited about it.
And your book is about divine time.
It is, yeah. My book is called The Sacred Pulse, Holy Rhythms for Overwhelmed Souls. And the whole idea is getting back in step with the rhythm of well-being and wholeness that God has for us.
Awesome. Jennylyn.
Sounds like an amazing book, April. Sounds really
Thank
exciting. Yeah, so I live in New York City. I don't know what I do. I have a YouTube channel.
You're a singer and a mentor, right?
I don't even know what I do. I tell people I don't even have a career. I do have a sugar daddy. His name is God, and somehow, somehow, some way, I have this fabulous, amazing life, and I actually have no clue how I even got here. And yeah, so that's that. And
everyone who's around you feels that way too, that you make their life more fabulous and amazing.
Oh, you're sweet. Thank you.
It's true. Thank you. And David?
Yes, my name is David. I am from Los Angeles, born and raised. So I've been told that I'm a unicorn because I guess unicorns supposedly don't exist, but here I am. We do exist, people who were born and raised in LA.
Right.
I feel kind of similarly to Jennylyn. Wait, did I say that? That's your name, right? Jennylyn? Yes, okay, cool. I do so many things. When people ask me, what do you do? I'm like, you should ask me like what I don't do, because I feel like that list might be shorter, or what I haven't done. But I would say what God has like called me to do in life. I'm a musician, I'm a singer, songwriter, artist. I also just started acting, which is a whole story in and of itself, because I actually feel like God has called me to that for a long time, but I finally took the plunge. I have been in real estate. I'm currently personal training. Yeah, so.
Oh, look, Amber's watching. Hi, Amber. Oh my gosh, we've got some people watching us. Thank you all for being here. Amber said hi to me and you, Jenny. She's a fellow singer as well. So my name is Betsy Freeman. We've been doing this show for about 6 months. I have this little booking business that I started a few years ago in LA, and it's mostly just to help people get performance gigs. And I also sing and play the piano, and I write, and I do ministry, and I don't know, I try to just enjoy life. I'm working on it anyway. And I love to talk to people. And I really love this topic because I think we've never been more weirded out by time, probably most of us, than in the last year or so. And it's a fun topic in terms of it literally is the fourth dimension, right? It's not something that's easy to describe, but we've all been traveling through the time and learning different ways how to adjust and how to process it. So I guess I wanted to start off with just a sort of a general question. What does that mean to you? What does divine time mean to you? What's the first thing that comes to mind for you? And if you can unpack that for us a little bit. We'll start with April because she's the one that wrote the book.
Oh, divine time. In my book, I lay out kind of two different things, and this is really the way that I see the difference between divine time and human time. In the Greek language, there are really two words for time. There's chronos time, which is like our chronological moments in our day, but then there's kairos time, which are the opportune moments, the sacred moments. And I think that, at least for me, I get so wrapped up in that chronological time, getting everything done by the end of a deadline, or meeting expectations, or putting myself out there by a certain age or a certain, and when you get in that mindset, it's almost like tunnel vision of crossing everything off the list. But divine time interrupts that. It's always present, but it's always interrupting human expectations. And if we listen to that pulse of sacred time as opposed to our own chronological expectations, that's where we find the blessings and the connections and the relationships. And so that's really what I'm hoping to do, is to figure out how to listen for that a little bit better, so that God doesn't have to interrupt me so much, that I'm just listening.
That's good. Jennylyn, what does divine time mean to you?
Yeah, I'm going to tag team off of April. I could care less about timelines. The life just beat that out of me by the time I was like at 35. I was just like, I don't care anymore. So I don't care about timelines. I don't care about pleasing the Joneses. I don't care about keeping up with anybody. I mean, I'm only human, so I have my moments, but they don't steer me one way or the other. And I feel that God gives you all that you need through the power of his amazing universe to take the next step. There's never been a point in my life when I did not have everything of which I needed to take the next step.
I think what I really thought was that it was like, okay, so this happened in my life at this point. That was God's timing. That was like perfect divine timing. But I didn't really probably think of it anything more beyond that. And I think I'm still just like learning, even, what April just said about the two Chronos and Kairos timelines. I really want to be in tune with the Holy Spirit, and not to ignore the fact that he gave us this gift of humanity and this timeline, because I don't think God is just sort of like throwing things out there that are meaningless. Everything has a purpose, everything has a meaning. And so I want to understand how those two things meet, and what the purpose of the two of them coming together means and is, because I don't think that they should be divorced from one another. I think that there is meaning in both of them. And so I want to be totally in tune with the Holy Spirit on what it means to be, April, as you were saying, like focused on the chronological of what do I need to do in order to make this happen by this time, but also very just open to when the Holy Spirit is saying this needs to be done at this time, like where I don't want to be interrupted to the point that I'm like, oh wow, like that was so cool that God did that at that, but I want to be just so in tune with the Holy Spirit that those two things are lining up, I think, the way probably he would want them to be. I don't know.
That's awesome. And it's a very positive way to think of it. Yeah, I think that for me, divine time as that sort of pull between the sort of pace that we feel of the rhythm of life around us and the expectations of others, whether it's from a job we have, or the sort of goals that we imposed upon ourselves, or our hopes for what would happen in our lives, things that involved other people that we couldn't control, and then the tension in between, sort of how does God see my life, and how does God intend for me to take my little basket of talents in this direction or that direction, or could it be either or both? Is there really, one better option? Those kinds of things used to really make me crazy, in terms of I had so many different interests and so many different aspirations, I guess, for what I wanted to accomplish in life. And then there'd be times that I just lose all motivation or all hope that I could pull those things off, that the other pieces of the puzzle could come into play, that there would be provision for it, that there would be collaboration, that there would be, you know, that I could keep up my own enthusiasm and my own energy to get something done. And I'm really thankful for some of the amazing projects that I've gotten to be part of, that I, you know, there are a lot of things that I could never have dreamed about in my own, you know, like I came to LA not knowing what I was going to do here in LA. I'm not in LA right now, but I will be there in a couple of days. So my brain, I'm still there. I didn't know anything about where I was going when I graduated from college. I didn't have any interest in being in California, and yet I live there. I think we should tell stories next for a while. And Jennylyn asked this question, so I want to ask her to answer it first. What's a time in your life when timing was everything?
Okay, can you guys hear me okay? Mm-hmm. Okay. So timing has always been everything in every situation. I've never seen anything unfold in my life in any way other than fabulously good. But so everything's always been working out great for me. And I can look back over the timelines and see how if this or that didn't happen, then this or that wouldn't have happened as well. So yeah, like even the apartment I live in, like I had dreamed of living in New York City. I'll show you guys my view.
Wow. Awesome.
Wow.
I had dreamed of living in New York City for 20 years. So it took 20 years to get me over here because I was born and raised in OC. And I had a lot of hesitancies because I didn't have family here. I had no job here. There were just all kinds of moving parts that just kept me in California for years. And I had given up on that dream completely. And one thing led to the next. And before you knew it, I was out here. And before you knew it, I was living in this amazing apartment. And before you knew it, I was living my dreams. And, you know, so I look back on it, and there's a lot of things that have opportunities that have come into my life over the last couple of years that I would not have been ready for before. So a lot of times God withholds things because you're just not ready. And we have a big ego, and we always want to be, you know, we all want to be ready for marriage at 28. We all want to be millionaires by 40. Like, you know, it's just normal. You know, we all want a best-selling book by 45. Well, unfortunately, you know, life doesn't unfold according to our ego. God knows what's best for us. He knows when you're ready for it. And so I'm not a fan of resisting anything. And I'm a big fan of just understanding that everything is always unfolding really beautifully for me. And you typically can't see that until you get to certain points. You know, you can look back and be like, okay, now I see why I met that person. Now I know why that guy dumped me. Now I know why it didn't work out. I didn't end up marrying that guy I was engaged to. Now I get it. You know, you start to look back and think those things. But in the moment, it's very difficult to feel that way. So it's very important to go with the flow of life and to understand that you're always going to end up somewhere amazing. I think if you'll surrender, that's the best word I could use, surrender to God and surrender to life and to the flow of life that's given to you. So
that's good. Thank you. David, what is a time in your life when timing was everything?
So I'll try to diminish the story like into making it very compact, but there was a time when I've always been pursuing a career in music, but I had a moment where I was just so frustrated because I had been putting in so much effort into everything I was doing, and I just felt like nothing was moving forward the way that I had wanted it to or was wanting it to at the time. And I remember I had a meeting with a counselor from my school. I went to music school, and they listened to the music that I had, and he said, "This is really, really good. You're a really good singer. You're a really good songwriter, but the production of your music is, you know, not up to par." I remember coming home and just being so upset. I mean, it's so funny too. Like when I could have really focused on, wow, this Oscar-winning, Grammy-winning songwriter said that I was a good singer and a great songwriter. Like I didn't focus on that. I focused on like the other parts of him. I don't have a good quality of production,
Well, that's still really
It's funny
hard
how
to hear because you want to be encouraged on every level
for
all
sure.
around.
Yeah. But I also look at myself now where I'm at with my walk with the Lord, and it's just funny how things shift and how it's just as you grow in the Lord, like it's easier to be more the way he's called us to be. Not that I'm saying I'm perfect, whatever. It's just it's a growth thing. But I remember being very upset, and my mom saying, okay, look, instead of being upset about it, like we need to pray. Like, what do you want? Like, what do you want from the Lord? And so I remember I was like, well, I need better production. I need to find a producer. I don't have money, but this is what I need, Um, and so we prayed about it, and we were very specific, and my mom was very specific and encouraging in that. So this was back in the days when like people posted on Craigslist. And so I posted on Craigslist that I was looking for a producer, and I was very transparent about the fact that I didn't have a lot of money, but I was looking for like a partnership, like a writing partner, a production partner, somebody that I could sort of grow with, not knowing what would happen, thinking probably like, I don't really know if it's realistic that I'll find what I'm looking for, but if you don't post, you're definitely not gonna get anything, And so I posted on this information online, and I got a response. Well, I got several responses, many of which were like, "Oh, we charge like $5,000 an hour for our studio," and I said, "You didn't even read my post clearly," and I got a lot of that, But one of the very last responses that I received, if not the last one, it was in broken English. I couldn't understand what it was saying, and I thought it was a scam. But then I kept rereading it, and the last line of it said, "Oh, by the way, like I think I saw you performing at a little bar on Hollywood a couple of months ago."
Wow.
And so I was like, well, that's weird, because I did, perform at this little bar in Hollywood with just my guitar player a couple of months ago. And so as it turned out, this person who responded was like a very big producer from France.
Wow.
And he had reached out to me. Well, rewind 2 months. I was performing with just my guitar player at this bar. And, for those of us who are musicians, and we know like we have these gigs and nobody's there, sometimes just your parents, or your friend or whatever. And there was just me and my guitar player, I think his girlfriend and her friend. There was, I think a couple of people came in and out, but there was nobody really there. Well, I specifically remember seeing this person walk in, and they had like a saxophone case, ordered a couple of drinks, stayed for a while, and left. Well, it was this person who responded to my email, and he told me at the time that, he came to LA and he was excited. He's obviously a musician. And he went to all of the other bigger venues to sort of see what was going on, and said that he felt sort of let down by some of the things that he saw. And when he was walking along the boulevard that night and he heard music coming from where I was playing at, he came in, ordered a drink, stayed for a little while, and was pleasantly surprised by what he heard. Then fast forward for him again 2 weeks or however 2 months, and he saw my post on Craigslist, and I had a link to MySpace or whatever it was at the time, and he's like, "Hey, that's that guy. Like, that's so weird." And so now, fast forward to now, he ended up producing my whole first album. He flew me out to France. We did several videos. And ultimately he really became actually like a brother to me. He's I can honestly say that he is probably one of the most genuine, if not the most genuine human being that I've honestly ever met in my life, and had the pleasure of knowing. And for me, that was, up to this point in my life, probably one of the most sort of like timing, like you can't craft that, you can't manipulate that. If there was ever a time to say that there's no such thing as coincidence. It was that whole situation, you know. And so for me, that was very, very much one of those moments. So yeah.
Thank you. That's an awesome story. But I feel that, you know, if there's just one really fabulous person that you meet to collaborate with, or who believes in you, it can make all of those other times, you know, suddenly feel worth it leading up to now. And sometimes like, you can look back and say, oh, those other times were preparation, or, you know, in the moment though, in the waiting process, in the slog before you meet a person, right, that, you know, it could be really lonely as an artist. Thank you for sharing that story. April, when was the time when timing was everything in your life?
I first just want to say, Jennylyn and David, thank you for sharing those stories. I have always wanted to write a book, probably since I was in 3rd or 4th grade. And, but kind of like Betsy had said before we went live, I just am interested in so many different things. You know, if you're going to write a book, you have to be willing to live with that topic for, you know, a long time, a year, year and a half, 2 years longer, you know, as long as people are reading it, you're living with the topic. And I just could never put my finger on what the right thing was. And it frustrated me because I thought, I'm getting closer and closer to 40 and I still have never done this. And one day, just kind of out of the blue, this idea popped into my mind, and I had a title, and the whole outline came to my mind within just a matter of minutes.
Wow.
I wrote all this down and I thought, wow, well, now I need to do something with this, but I don't have good connections. I don't have, you know, I started thinking about all the things I didn't have that were going to make this so difficult. And I thought, you know, if I don't at least write a proposal, I will never know if anyone will be interested in this book. And so I started working on the proposal. And just a few months later, I was cleaning out the spam folder on my email inbox. And I had an email that said it was from an editor for this new publication company. And would I be interested in sending them a proposal? And I thought, this is way too good to be true. This has got to be a scam. And so I started researching, because this doesn't happen. This is not, no one's publication story is this way. And I started researching and found out that no, she really was a reputable editor for a reputable publication company that was kind of a new startup, but through a very well-known parent company. And I prayed about it and really thought about it. And I thought, you know, I'm going to finish this proposal. And I put it right out there to her. I said, I don't have an agent. I don't know what I'm doing. My proposal's not done, but I do have something for you. And she said, well, I'm willing to wait for it.
Oh,
and so I put it together and sent it to her. And by the end of that year, I had a book contract in front of me. And the first couple months that I was writing, you know, I'm thinking, oh, I'm living the dream. And then COVID-19 happened and everything started shutting down. And my book is about healthy and whole rhythms for our daily life. And all of a sudden, daily life has been completely turned upside down, and there is no daily, there is no rhythm. And the book ended up being such a gift for me personally. Through the year of writing and completing my manuscript, every chapter I wrote, it felt like God knew I needed that at that time, which was really awesome for me. So I started to realize, if no one else reads my book, if no one else finds anything from my book, this book has saved my own life. And so that really was a time when God's timing was everything. I can't imagine if I had tried to write this before all of this had happened, it would not be the same.
Yeah, we wouldn't be in so much, well, I think we have been in need of some big changes to our rhythm, probably as a society, for a good long time, right? But this has sort of been this giant, I guess some people are calling it a reset. I don't know if that's the right thing. I mean, but some of us had learned earlier how to change our own rhythms, so we didn't have to conform to the sort of patterns that other people put on us, or that we didn't have to conform to even our own idea that we were supposed to. Like, I would say for me, one of the biggest times in my life when I realized that the timing was really important was when in 2008, the beginning of 2008, I was in Illinois visiting my parents home from Beverly Hills because I had a job in the office in Beverly Hills. And I went to a basketball game with my dad. And I started thinking about going to grad school. I was kind of like, oh, this is nice, you know, seeing my dad and being here on campus. And like, I just wanted to do something different than work in office jobs. And I was feeling just really underused as a person. You know, I just felt like I was not getting the most out of my own brain. And I was starting to get worried that I couldn't accomplish anything important, whatever you call that, you know. And I applied to, you know, sort of, I didn't apply to any other grad schools. I wasn't like, you know, I had never set a time of my life that and it wasn't like, to me, it was sort of like, okay, I had this plan A, which was like performing, but that didn't seem like a great idea to try to put my whole life into that. Even when I started college, that was not really my thing. I was just like, I'm going to study it for a while, and then who knows what else might happen. You know, so then when I applied to grad school in journalism, I was just like, let's just see if I get in, because that was sort of my plan B, was journalism. So let's see what happens with that. So then lo and behold, I get into this program that really only accepts 20 people every year. And then the economy fell. So I was in a master's program when that giant crash happened. And everybody else started applying to grad school, you know, in the next year. I don't think there's any way I would have ever gotten accepted into that program any later than I did. And I'm really grateful for it, because it was extremely difficult for me to finish that program. But it changed my life in some really important ways. And that was actually right at the time in my life too, where the Lord sort of started instituting a sort of a Sabbath in a way where he'd just be like, look, I don't want you to look at your bills or mess with money on Saturdays. So, you know, Friday sundown to Saturday sundown, just forget about it and go have fun and live your life. And just that small thing, not even, you know, that I couldn't do homework or that I had to go outside or anything like that, where I just didn't think about paying bills for 24 hours, was really powerful and actually really hard. I really had a hard time pulling it off at first. I would fail and then repent, you know, and go back and forth. But it changed a lot in my head about, man, I really obsess about my bills. I really think that my credit score and paying my bills on time is the most important thing in the world about me. I don't know why, but somewhere I got that message, and there's a lot of unlearning to do to get to the other part of my life. Okay, so let's see. Let's go to this question, because I think this is really good for all of us, that April wrote. When life gets busy, we'll start with David first, because I don't think we've gone to him first yet. When life gets busy, what activities or disciplines help you rediscover God's flow of time?
You know, I feel like in my life, I'm not, it's interesting because I don't feel like I've ever yet in my life been to the point where like I want to be like so busy. Like I haven't achieved that sort of success yet to where like I can give an answer to where I feel like I will be at some point. I don't know what that's like yet, but when it becomes busy for whatever that means for me, I feel like honestly the best thing to sort of reset or to stay mindful of God's time is really just spending time with him, you know. Reading the word, reminding myself, and the last several years, I would say after leading up to and after I went to Israel, which was life-changing in and of itself, I really started to understand what it meant, like that my relationship with him was I've always known that it was important, but it just became really like everything, and it should be everything, you know. um and even like verses that where it says that you should pray without ceasing, like that I finally understood what that meant, because before, when I was younger, I always thought, well, what does that mean? Like, how do you pray without ceasing? If you pray without ceasing, you won't do anything else. Like, how do you live a life, you know? But I finally understood that no, it's having like a relationship with him, you know. Like, I could be in the car and not deep in prayer, but he's still here with me. It's like somebody's riding in the car with you. You can still say, oh Lord, this or that, or you see a person and say a prayer over them, or if you forgot something, you can say, oh yes, Lord, remind me to do that, or whatever it is, you know. It's just always, that's praying without ceasing, you know. And I think that just living in that sort of headspace. So like I said, leading up to um, going to Israel, which I went to Israel in 2018 with my pastors. And I had met my pastors 2 years prior to that. And it was totally, that actually is really a God timing thing as well, which I don't, you know, not to get off topic of this question, but I think this is something I wanted to share as well. Um, I had um, I had left my old church in uh, like about March of 2016, because I really felt like it was time to move on. But it was also very difficult because, you know, I'd been serving there for about 5 years. But I just knew it was time to move on, and the Lord told me to move on. So I left, but I was kind of really struggling to find a new ministry to serve in, and it was very difficult. Like, I had full on like heaving cries of like praying and like, Lord, where am I supposed to be? Where do you want me planted? Um, and I remember meeting my pastors in May of that year. It wasn't a church yet. It hadn't formed an actual ministry. I mean, they had their own ministry, but it wasn't a church yet. They had a Bible study. And I started going to this Bible study. And so maybe like, I don't know, 3 or 4 months of going into it, the Lord said, these are your pastors, you know, serve them. And I said, well, that's kind of funny. Like, it's not a church. Like, I don't understand. But I wasn't going to be disobedient, you know, like I did what I could to serve them in the study. So whatever, fast forward, you know, we transitioned into a church. Um, and one of the things that God showed me about like maybe, I don't know, several months into serving at the new church was when I had been heave crying, asking where I was supposed to be planted, and I didn't know, and where am I, you know, I just want to be planted in a church and I want to serve. Um, and he had shown me that I had continued to do that even after I had already met the people who would become my pastors. And so something that he showed me in that was that he was already beginning to answer my prayer while I was still praying it, but I didn't know that, you know. Um, and so something that he made me realize is that moving forward, I not that I'm like saying that don't feel your feelings, but I don't need to worry or struggle or heave cry about anything, because when I bring anything and everything to God, it's already taken care of. Um, there's no worrying, there's no fear in anything, which fear and worry is a whole nother thing in of itself, because we don't have a spirit of fear, which actually that's something that our pastor preached on this morning. But you know, I just I ended up going to Israel with my pastors, and then after that, my spiritual life sort of just exploded, and spending time with him just became the most important thing to me. Um, and I think that when life does get busy, because I haven't always, and I won't always have the type of hours maybe to spend in the word or prayer, you know, especially when you get to the point of success, you know, it sometimes isn't possible. Or I don't know, maybe I'm wrong for saying that, I don't know, but um but I think that training yourself to be knowing that you are in a relationship with somebody, God, is really important, you know, and I think that spending that time before you get too busy is really important, because when you do get busy, you know you're in a relationship, and it's important to be able to be in that car ride and still be praying without ceasing, you know, whereas before I had invested all of that time in prayer and talking to him, I didn't understand what praying without ceasing meant, but now I live it like he says it, you know. I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, I think so, definitely. And I remember, I mean, there, like, you know, on a personal level, I mean, there've been times, because David and I have gone to that same Bible study over the years, the same church, that, you know, he was in a much stronger place with the Lord because I had spent that time in prayer, where he could really help me in a time when I really needed extra help, and surrounded me. And like, that's, you know, there's a like times that you go through of preparation, right, and getting edified, and where God sort of like opens up and is like, wow, and you have this mountaintop experience, and usually you come down from that mountaintop just bringing down, you know, lots of showers of sprinkles for, you know, anybody else who needs it.
I mean, that's like Moses, like his face was like shining, and I think that's sort of like a metaphor for like, yes, you've seen the face of God. Somebody actually told me when I came back from Israel, they were like, you don't look like the same person. I was like, wow, that's amazing.
That's awesome. Yeah, and sometimes stepping out, you know, going on a trip like that seems like really daunting and you know,
yeah, I'm not gonna lie, like I totally was like, before I left, I was like, because prior to that, like right before leaving, I felt I was in like some sort of condemnation about some things, and I was like, oh man, like I'm not prepared for this, like I'm gonna miss, because everybody talks about that your moment in Israel, like you're gonna have a moment, and I'm like, it's not gonna happen, it's totally not gonna happen, because I'm not ready, I'm not prepared, which is so dumb, because it's like, who is prepared for the Lord? Like no one is ever prepared, you know, like he comes to us, I mean, you know, he will meet us where we're at, you know. And I did have my moment, you know, because it wasn't about me, it was about him.
And he was there preparing your moments to meet you. April, tell us about the activities and disciplines that help you rediscover God's flow of time.
Sure. I've got a couple that I like to do, and both of mine are outside. I find that when I get too focused on whatever it is that I'm doing and I really need to reconnect with God, one of the ways that I do that is by spending time in my garden. And I think part of why that has been so meaningful to me is that you can't control it. All you can do is put in the work and show up faithfully, and it's God who gives the growth. And so that has always just been a powerful visual symbol for me about waiting on God's timing. And it just reminds me to slow down. But then my other thing is that I go out almost every evening and spend some time with my chickens in my backyard. And there's just something about watching the way that they interact with each other, the way, you know, Jesus said, look at the lilies, they don't worry about what to wear, or the birds don't worry about what to eat. And I observe that with my chickens. They don't stress about what's going to happen tomorrow. They go out and live their chicken lives. And so that has been really inspirational for me and something that I look forward to often.
Those are great ones. Yeah, I find that, sometimes I really need to laugh, and it's hard to know what will make me laugh so it's really important for me to, like, you know, well, walking is just really important to me. I have to like go walk. That's how I process. Walking and talking is basically how I process everything. But yeah, animals are great because they don't have anywhere near the same sense of timing, or you know, they might get into their little, but mostly they play and they have their own. You see something, they're teaching us something else, and it's hard to slow down it's easy to get into a rhythm, especially if you live in a city. I came upon some chickens once in an alley, I mean, behind my apartment, with just like, you know, they were like we're not zoned for those chickens, but somebody was raising them and they got out. They were like the little fluffy bantam chickens. I'm not kidding. And it was really sad, actually, because one of them had been injured by a car. And so one of them was two of them were adorably standing around and protecting their third friend who was dying. And I really, it was just like such an out of body experience, because I'm from the country. You know, I was used to seeing cows and pigs and, you know, all kinds of things around me every day growing up. But then when you're living in an asphalt jungle basically every day with just a few palm trees, which is not how LA really is, but sometimes that, like, I wouldn't make myself go to the beach. You know, I wouldn't make time for the beach because it felt exhausting, because I'd have to be in traffic to get there, you know, and whatnot. So that, you know, that's what really helps me, is I go, you know what, I'm going to the beach, even though I'm gonna have to kill myself to get there. It's still gonna feel good when I'm actually there.
Yeah.
So those are the things that help me. Jennylyn.
Yeah, you guys, I guess I'll just expand even more on what all y'all said. So I've never ever had, I've had plenty of failures in life, don't get me wrong, but everything that's ever failed that wasn't resurrected into a success, it just wasn't meant for me. And anything that was ever meant for me went, I would almost say effortlessly. There's a certain supernatural and inspired action in a human when they're in flow with what God's will is for their life. And you can feel that because it feels good. And you feel inspired. You feel so inspired that the day goes by quickly. The tasks you're doing, it's like, you don't even realize how quickly this goes by. So you might feel a physical fatigue at times and things like that. But so if it doesn't flow, I let it go. And everything that has flowed was because it was meant for me. And I have never failed at anything that was meant for me. Somehow, some way, it just, the next lily pad appeared, and I just had to keep going. And, you know, different amazing opportunities and things came my way. Like for me, I have a pretty popular singing YouTube channel. I don't try at all. I just, you know, put a little makeup on, rehearse the song a little bit, you know, get up there. I'm like, boom, million views, easy does it, because it was meant for me. And if I had done that same sort of thing with anything in life that's meant for me, it always tends to go. So yeah, I would just make a strong case for inspired action, which will feel really good. And I don't see God and the world as like a torture chamber. I don't see it that way at all. I think there's just so many blessings and so many serendipitous moments, and just everything is meant to be. And there's no like just random thing. The stories you guys are talking about, just like amazing opportunities that have come your way, like that was meant for you. So the hardest part is there are times in life when God is asking you to be still. There are times in life when he's asking you to pray or meditate a lot more. Yeah. There are times when opportunities are not coming because they're not meant for you at that time.
Yeah,
you know, he wants you to grow internally. He wants you to face certain pains from your childhood, heal things, you know, grow up, take responsibility. Like there's just down times in life that happen. And if we resist those and just like refuse to rest and refuse to meditate or pray or just be still, you're going to set yourself back. It's going to take you double as long to get there. So I've learned to surrender as well to those moments of stillness in life. And then when it's time to go and I'm feeling the inspiration, yeah, I can hustle. I can work 20 hours if I'm inspired, you know, so just waiting for the right timing of everything.
That's really good. Thank you. Yeah, that brings up some really important stuff. Brady, my cousin, wrote, because of his sovereignty and his love, we can trust in his timing, a timing that won't stress ourselves out if we did it in if we did it in our own accord. YC. Praise the Lord for the Holy Spirit to bring things into light and work out salvation with fear and trembling. Yeah, I think that unfinished business, you know, if there is one thing that I've learned about, you know, I know that I could feel that there's something wrong, and I could feel you know, I know what peace feels like, and I know I'm not experiencing peace. You know, sometimes it'll take some real time for me to surface what is that thing consciously. just really have to work on it with the Lord and say, what is it that's bothering me? Because I know I have some things in the moment I've got to get done before I can even give that, it's space in my head to really fully concentrate on it. Now, as far as making time to really listen every day, I go through times when I'm really good at giving that space, so the Lord can really prepare me for what's coming next. Like, I think he wants to give us some advance notice on certain things, or say, hey, PS, like, you didn't forgive that guy and you're still mad at this person, and this person's waiting for you to apologize and you probably should, or whatever it is. If there's a lot that could be at rest within us that might not be. And I think that we are used to stuffing a lot of that stuff. Then we don't feel safe in the world. We're not sure. It feels like a torture chamber, like you said, because you start attracting the same kind of crap keeps happening because you're not sure, and you're not sure what you did to deserve it. You start to put yourself on that kind of wheel, that you're in a cycle that you can't stop, and it's your fault, or you're cursed, or and it's just like, well, none of that stuff is necessarily true. But there might be some patterns in your way of thinking or your way of life that are giving you that message, and then you're manifesting that. Alrighty. Well, I can't believe it, but we're almost at an hour. I feel like we've just like scratched the surface of this topic, like just barely. I think, okay, patience. I think this is a good topic to end on, because a lot of time, I don't know, for me, patience is the hardest thing about time. Aging doesn't bother me. I'm not really that concerned anymore about things I didn't get done. I could look back and go, I've done some cool things. But patience for those things that like really are important, especially just like reconciliation, those kinds of things. What helps you learn patience? Who wants to take that one first?
I'll go ahead and go then. So patience would be like, in my mind, it's the opposite of being thirsty. Patience is the opposite of controlling. Patience is the opposite of forcing. It's like, have you guys ever been on a date with someone who's thirsty, controlling, and forcing? It's the worst. It's the worst. Yeah. And I really feel that God tries to teach us lessons about that. So patience is letting go of control and outcomes, which is why I don't even know what I do anymore. I used to be very calculated. I could give you a whole list of, I don't know anymore because I have no expectation. I only know it will be fabulous, and I know it will be expansive, and I know it will be fun, and I know that it will be inspired, but I don't have expectations anymore. And like Betsy mentioned, like there's a lot of things in my 20s I was very thirsty for. And I think for women, the only thing that you really have to take into consideration in terms of timing is obviously having children. That is a fair thing to work through. That's a fair biological issue, though you can always just go about it a different way and be open to that as well. But other than that, I can't think of one thing in the world that has to happen today. Not one thing. Like, I mean, I even joke around with some of my mentees. I'm like, she's like, I'm 47 and I'm not married. Oh, I'm like, okay, you could meet your husband at 50 and still do another 40 years with him. Trust me, like it's plenty. Like you'll be good. Like 40 years, it's enough. So when it comes to business success and things like that, the reason why I'm patient is because success, if you've had success in certain areas of your life, it is overwhelming. Especially if you do things like on the internet, you get a lot of hate. If you're an artist, you get a lot of stalkers, you get a lot of obsessed dudes and crazy, rude emails, like perverted emails. Like there's a lot that goes along with being successful. It's a lot to be Britney Spears and have a staff of 100 people, from security guards to managers, that she has to feed. There's a lot that goes into being a success in what you do. And so God is so kind and so gracious as to
Yes.
deliver us success, the relationship, everything in life that you desire in the right timing. So it's important, I can only say for women, I can't speak for men, to learn to not be thirsty for anything, but content and happy in all things and in the present moment, because tomorrow's not promised.
Sorry.
Like the whole world could blow up tomorrow. So it doesn't really matter if you paid your bills today. I mean, not that I'm not an advocate of paying bills and having good credit, but it's like there's just a lot more to life than like being skinny, having a big ASS, and like being, you know, having amazing like credit. There's a lot to life, and you just never know what will happen tomorrow. So because tomorrow's not promised, I'm very focused on the present moment, and that keeps me patient. And I've learned to be patient with age. So that's something for the ladies listening. As you get older, you will just simply learn it. And my mentor, who was a pastor's wife, I asked her when I was young, how are you so patient? And she just looked at me and said, Jenny, life will teach you patience. God will teach you patience. So you don't need to be thirsty for patience either.
That's excellent.
Yeah. I think that too, like even as you're saying, like thirsty, because I know in what way you're using that word, but like even with God, like he says that you'll never thirst for anything with him, you know, so it's just anything in life, like don't be thirsty for it, because God will quench that thirst in anything, you know.
Yeah.
And he does. I think that yeah, I feel like most of us don't really understand patience until we actually need to through our lives, which is why she said what she said, life will teach you patience. I've always felt like, for me it's been weird because I really struggled or have struggled with patience in the things that I've wanted. You know, Betsy, you've mentioned like all of the things, like, okay, well, how come this didn't happen the way I expected or wanted it to, or in the timing that and I've really struggled with patience in that sense. But it's weird because I don't struggle with patience in a short term, on the short term, like, or with people, like on a smaller scale, like when it's, I have to be patient with a person or a situation, I usually am. But it's like for my own life and like the bigger things and the longer term things, I've been like, why is this not happening when I want it to? I'm not like that, you know, anymore. I've really obviously like learned to say, oh yeah, like, you know, Jenny, as you were saying, like you reflect on things and you're kind of like, oh yeah, like if that had really, really happened the way that I wanted it to happen, that would not been a good thing for me. So God actually really loves me, and sees the bigger picture for my benefit. And also, if we take into account, you know, that the word says that all things work together for the good of those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose, then everything really is working out for my benefit. So even if for some strange reason, maybe I was supposed to have been successful in this or that by this age, and I made a mistake, I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do. Well, guess what? That, like you said, Jenny, like that promise isn't dead, you know, it can be resurrected. And whatever happened will still be used for my benefit, for the good of that thing. And if I get attacked by the enemy, it doesn't really matter, because it's going to work for my benefit, because I believe that word. If we, either the word is true or it's not, and we believe that it's true, and either that verse is true or it's not, and we believe that it is true. So all things work together for our good. And so I don't know, I think that patience is just something that you sort of work through, you know, and you gain. Maybe some people have it supernaturally, which is good for them, but that I wasn't one of those people.
Yeah, I think you have to sort of surround yourself with patient people too. That'll help you, because you sort of absorb the rhythms of the people
that's
around
really
you.
true. And I think that it's really, yeah, that's really important for sure.
April, we're actually at 4:00. So, but I'm going to let you close us out. Thank you for bringing up this topic. The Sacred Pulse, Holy Rhythms for Overwhelmed Souls comes out in December, and hopefully we'll come back. We'll have you on the show again before the book comes out. What you want to tell us a little bit more about what has helped you learn patience, and then we'll say
Sure.
goodbye for today.
This has been just such a great conversation. Thank you, everybody. This is going to sound really strange, but what has helped me the most for learning patience is experiencing impatience. because there has been something, every time in my life that I have experienced profound impatience and restlessness, and then I, at the end of that, see how God came through for me, and experience that, why didn't I trust? Why didn't I wait? Why, and then you almost kind of beat yourself up about it. After riding that roller coaster several times, I thought, why don't I just skip the first part? Let's skip that that clenching of fists, that wanting to control everything that happens in my life, and see how it turns out, because God has always had my back.
Okay.
And of course, I still have those moments where, it's easy to fall back into patterns, but God has been faithful so many times. And that has taught me that I don't need to be so controlling or so demanding of having things my own way.
Well, thank you all so much, Jennylyn, David, and April. Thank you all so much for being here. Next week is April 25th, I believe, and we'll be, actually, I won't be on the show next week. Flo will be moderating. I'll be talking about social media platform integration and switching, which is a topic that I am no expert on at all. So Kristen Jazak will be with us, Barrow, and who's my third guest? Oh, Shane, a friend of Rose, will be with us to talk about those. And you're going to learn more about how to integrate all the new platforms and level up our social media. So come back next week and see us. Thank you. And let's trust God with our time. Bye, everybody.
Amen.